Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we slice through the noise and get straight to the insights that help you truly understand the world around us. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a topic that stirs a remarkably complex emotional cocktail in pretty much all of us, advanced robotics. Specifically, we're looking at the fascinating and, sometimes unsettling creations from Boston Dynamics. I want you to just close your eyes for a second and picture this. It's just before dawn, right? A quiet factory hums to life. Workers start trickling in, maybe still rubbing the sleep from their eyes, and then they notice someone new. A new colleague on the floor. It's tall, incredibly live, a humanoid robot, but, this isn't your clunky, stiff machine from old sci-fi. Not at all. This robot moves with an almost uncanny fluidity. Like a dancer, really. Effortlessly lifting heavy crates, gliding across the floor. And look, this isn't some scene from a distant future. It's a glimpse, right now, into our rapidly evolving present. Many of you have probably seen those viral clips online, maybe the one where a robot slips, takes a tumble, then just elegantly, almost balletically rights itself with astonishing precision. That moment, for so many of us, it ignites this peculiar blend of emotions, doesn't it? Like profound awe, the sheer technical marvel, absolutely. But also there's this palpable unease, an unease that stems from really deep questions, about the future of human labor, the boundaries of our privacy, even the fundamental structures of power in our society. That right there, that's our mission for this deep dive, to meticulously unpack this complex emotional and societal response to advanced robotics. We'll be using Boston Dynamics' groundbreaking robots as our focal point, dissecting their journey from academic curiosities to genuine cultural icons. To give you the most comprehensive picture possible, we'll be synthesizing insights from public reporting, Boston Dynamics' own detailed releases, and importantly, rigorous peer-reviewed social science research. Get ready, it's going to be a fascinating exploration.
It really is remarkable, isn't it, how swiftly these machines have gone from being, tucked away in specialized research labs to becoming these prominent fixtures in our cultural consciousness and capable of sparking such intense public debate. This conversation, as you rightly point out, it isn't solely about the engineering feats themselves, though they are incredibly impressive. It's fundamentally about the profound societal implications these robots represent. Our focus today will go beyond just cataloging what these machines can do to really exploring how we react to them, and critically, why those reactions are so diverse, often contradictory even, and deeply rooted, I think, in our collective human experience.
Okay, so let's begin right at the very beginning. Let's trace the remarkable journey of these bots. Boston Dynamics didn't just, burst onto the scene with viral videos of dancing robots. Not at all. Their story stretches back decades, actually, deeply embedded in foundational academic research on legged robotics way back in the 1980s. That was a period of intense theoretical work, early experiments. Then in the 2000s, they really started to emerge into public view, largely through these ambitious projects funded by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Names like BigDog and Cheetah probably ring a bell for some listeners. Iconic stuff. What was absolutely groundbreaking about these early machines wasn't like their ability to think or feel like humans. It was their unparalleled mastery of dynamic balance and mobility. That was the key, their primary goal. Pushing the limits of locomotion in what experts call unstructured environments. So think rugged outdoor terrain, debris-strewn disaster zones, basically any landscape that isn't a perfectly flat, predictable factory floor. It was all about moving with agility and stability in the real, messy world.
Right. And that initial, almost singular focus on navigating unpredictable environments was absolutely foundational to everything that came after. It wasn't just an engineering challenge. It was a paradigm shift, really. If you think about the complexity, a dog or a cheetah moving across uneven ground, right? Adjusting balance with every single step, reacting to obstacles they can't even see. That's what they were trying to emulate. They weren't building human-like brains at that stage. They were mastering the biomechanics of physical movement, which is a far, far more intricate problem than many people realize at first. It meant developing systems that could react in real time to gravity, friction, inertia, all of that. Laying the groundwork for the more sophisticated designs we see today. It was purely about embodied intelligence in motion. That was the focus.
Okay, and this brings us to a really pivotal period, the viral era. And Boston Dynamics' strategic commercial turn in the 2010s. This is when the company made a very deliberate pivot, shifting from pure research demos to developing platforms that could actually be, commercialized, deployed in the real world. This is when Spot, the quadruped robot, truly stepped onto the global stage, captured widespread public attention, big time. By 2019, Spot was commercially available, and it quickly established itself as the company's most widely deployed platform. You couldn't scroll through social media or even turn on the news sometimes without seeing those now famous viral videos. Spot dancing with that almost eerie rhythm, effortlessly climbing stairs, entering a lab with this kind of determined gait. These weren't just impressive tech demos for, like, an industry conference. They transformed public attention into a significant cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, everyone knew what a Boston Dynamics robot was.
You're absolutely right. Those videos were masterstrokes in public relations. They created a powerful, really enduring public narrative. Spot moved beyond being just an engineering marvel. It became a mainstream conversation piece, a cultural touchstone almost. But what's often overlooked, or maybe misunderstood, is that while this icon status was phenomenal for brand recognition, it also, maybe inadvertently, set some unrealistic expectations. Expectations for the robot's immediate general utility outside of those, carefully controlled, choreographed environments. This created a new challenge for the company, didn't it? How do you manage public perception, shaped by spectacle, against the practical realities of industrial deployment? The viral fame was, well, it was a double-edged sword, raising both fascination and, a certain level of kind of misinformed apprehension.
But, as you said, with such immense visibility came equally intense scrutiny. And this leads us right into the ethical crossroads of, say, 2020 to 2023. This period saw a series of highly controversial police trials, most notably the NYPD's DigiDog, which involved a leased Spot unit. And the public outcry was immediate, it was passionate, it was fierce. Concerns ranged from the obvious surveillance, potential militarization of police forces to more nuanced worries about just the optics, right? The optics of robotic policing in already tense communities. These episodes didn't just generate headlines, they quickly led to contract cancellations. And an intense, almost unprecedented level of public scrutiny. It fundamentally shifted the entire public conversation. It moved definitively from simply asking, can we build it, to a much more profound, urgent question, should we deploy it? And crucially, under what rules, with what safeguards? This, I think, is truly where that initial emotional cocktail we talked about earlier really solidified into tangible apprehension for a lot of people.
The DigiDog case in particular became a stark, widely cited illustration of a governance failure, a real breakdown. It revealed that mere technical capability is profoundly insufficient. Societal acceptance and clear, publicly understood ethical frameworks are absolutely paramount, essential. Without genuine transparency, without meaningful public engagement, trust just evaporates rapidly. What might be seen as a useful tool by some, perhaps by law enforcement, quickly becomes a potent symbol of unchecked power and surveillance to others, deepening existing societal divides. It was a clear demonstration that the social context of deployment is just as important, maybe more important than the robot's technical specs.
Okay, now fast forwarding to 2024, 2025, we're seeing a significant humanoid resurgence, and an even deeper integration of advanced AI. Boston Dynamics officially retired its hydraulic Atlas variants, those powerful but kind of noisy predecessors, making way for the sleek, all-electric Atlas. This is more than just an engineering upgrade, it's a foundational change. Quieter, more efficient, different capabilities. But even more crucially, they're engaging in deep, collaborative research with leading AI labs. They specifically mention a partnership with the Toyota Research Institute. The cutting-edge goal here, developing what are called large behavior models, or LBMs. These LBMs are designed to enable humanoids to learn incredibly complex manipulation tasks, coordinated whole-body movements, not through painstaking individual programming line by line, but through demonstration. And through unified, overarching policies. This means Atlas isn't just performing scripted, preset movements anymore. It's about adaptable, embodied AI that can learn and generalize. That's the key difference.
Yes, this truly represents a monumental shift in the field, a really fundamental change in approach. We're transitioning from robots that are largely programmed for specific constrained tasks to systems that can learn and adapt in far more human-like, generalizable ways. LBMs signify a move toward what we call generalist models, which seamlessly integrate perception, language understanding, motor control, all together. This has the potential to dramatically accelerate skill transfer across an incredibly wide range of tasks and environments. It's huge. And while this development undoubtedly boosts their capabilities in astonishing ways, it simultaneously intensifies the public debate, doesn't it? The implications for how quickly these capabilities might scale, and the urgent need for robust governance frameworks to keep pace, they become even more pronounced. It's a potential game changer for adaptability, but it comes with significant questions.
And here's a sort of lesser-known historical shift that often gets overlooked amidst all the dazzling videos: the evolving ethos of Boston Dynamics itself. They began with purely research demonstrations, right? Often funded by military grants like DARPA. But over time, especially with the influence of private investors who quite naturally are looking for revenue streams, their focus began to shift significantly. It moved towards useful commercial deployments. In sectors like inspection, logistics, construction, it wasn't just about what they could build to push scientific boundaries anymore. It became about what would sell, what would serve a tangible, practical purpose in the market. This commercial imperative also underscores a critical point we touched on earlier. Public perception was, and still is, largely shaped by those captivating video clips, not by dense technical academic papers. It tells us that aesthetics, the compelling visual narrative, even the emotional resonance of these robots, they've been almost as critical as their actual technical capabilities in defining their public image and trajectory.
That really highlights a crucial aspect of tech development, doesn't it? The narrative surrounding these innovations isn't just an afterthought, it's often a primary driver, a driver of public acceptance or rejection, and even investment. The way these robots are presented, their movements, their appearance, the context of their performance, it subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, communicates their perceived purpose and potential role in society. What designers and deployers often fail to fully appreciate, perhaps, are the powerful cultural signals inadvertently embedded in engineering decisions. These signals can lead to unforeseen public reactions that sometimes completely overshadow the underlying technical achievements, influencing everything from policy to purchasing decisions. Hashtag the psychological and sociological ripple effects.
Okay, let's delve deeper now into the ripple effects these advancements are having, starting with individual psychology. You know that peculiar feeling, that unease that kind of washes over you when something is almost human, but not quite. That's what we call the uncanny valley. A concept first articulated by the Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori way back in 1970. When humanoid robots, particularly those with highly realistic near-human movements, come into play, they provoke this distinct, often unsettling discomfort. And it's that critical detail motion that specifically amplifies the psychological effect. It's not just how they look static. A robot that looks somewhat human but moves with, say, an awkward jerkiness, or conversely, with an almost too perfect, unsettling fluidity that can trigger this phenomenon much more intensely than just a static doll or mannequin. It's that subtle deviation from what we instinctively expect from a living being that makes a robot's near-human quality so incredibly salient. Sometimes, even unsettling.
Exactly. The uncanny valley isn't just about appearance, is it? It's profoundly influenced by the dynamics of movement, how it moves. That smooth, almost disturbingly perfect fluidity you mentioned, or conversely, a slight unnatural hesitation in its gait. They can instantly trigger that mixed reaction. On one hand, you feel a genuine curiosity, maybe admiration, for the technical prowess required to achieve such movement. It's amazing engineering. But on the other hand, there's that visceral sense of, revulsion or distrust, a feeling that something is fundamentally off. It's a very real psychological phenomenon. So when you observe these robots, especially the humanoid ones, watch closely. Do you feel a strange draw, a fascination? Or does something inside you instinctively pull back, like a subtle shiver of unease? Understanding this helps us grasp why public reactions are so varied and often so contradictory.
And this psychological impact flows directly into labor psychology, doesn't it? The pervasive shatter of automation anxiety. We've all heard the more alarmist predictions, robots are taking all the jobs, wholesale job annihilation. While those more apocalyptic forecasts have largely been tempered by rigorous research, including comprehensive analyses from the OECD, for instance, it's undeniable that significant anxiety absolutely persists among workers. The concern isn't always about a robot replacing an entire job description outright. It's often more about the displacement of specific tasks, the fundamental transformation of roles, and the resulting uncertainty around career stability. That's the real worry for many. What's crucial to understand is that these anxieties aren't just abstract worries confined to economic forecasts. They have measurable, tangible effects on individual well-being, on a person's sense of identity, even on mental health within communities that experience high robot intensity, where automation is rapidly changing the nature of work. So while the macroeconomic outcomes might be nuanced, the localized disruption and the deeply personal worry are very, very real, impacting lives every single day.
This is such a critical distinction. While the broader economic effects of automation are indeed complex, varying greatly by sector and region, we absolutely cannot ignore the very real human cost. At the individual level, at the community level, this isn't about universal overnight job loss, as you said. It's about significant, often rapid, job transformation. Take, for example, a factory town, where certain repetitive tasks in manufacturing are suddenly automated. While the company might retrain some workers for, say, oversight roles, others might find their specific skills suddenly obsolete. That leads to a profound sense of insecurity, a challenge to their professional identity. Therefore, policy responses need to be equally nuanced. They must address these localized disruptions not just with generalized retraining programs, but with comprehensive support systems, including mental health resources, community-specific economic diversification initiatives. Because the psychological burden of uncertainty about your future in the workforce, that could be profound and far-reaching.
Okay, moving beyond the individual, let's examine the social dynamics, where robots can quickly become powerful symbols of authority, sparking very real surveillance concerns. When robots like Spot are deployed in highly visible policing or surveillance roles, they inevitably amplify public anxieties about transparency, about potential algorithmic bias, about existing power imbalances in society. A machine operating in the public realm is rarely, if ever, perceived as just a neutral tool, is it? It immediately signals institutional priorities. And it can, quite unintentionally, exacerbate existing mistrust. This is particularly true in communities where relations with authorities, like the police, are already fragile or strained. We saw this unfold dramatically with those historical episodes, like the NYPD and LA tests of Spot, where the symbolic meaning of these robots, what they represented to the public, often significantly outweighed, or at least overshadowed, their actual technical utility in the public eye. The image of the DigiDog patrolling public housing, for example, ignited a firestorm of debate, far beyond its immediate operational function.
It truly underscores the idea that technology is never just about its raw functionality, especially when it enters public spaces. It immediately acquires this potent symbolic weight. To some, these robots might represent efficiency, progress, safety, fair enough. But to others, they might symbolize governmental overreach, a chilling lack of human accountability, or even a step towards a more authoritarian society where citizens are constantly monitored. The inherent challenge for policymakers, for the organizations deploying these robots, is to understand that public perception is shaped not merely by what the robot does, but profoundly by what it represents, particularly when introduced into contested civic environments. And this requires a level of foresight, of public engagement that has often been regrettably absent.
Yeah, and this brings us to the collective mindsets that prevail. Essentially, these dueling narratives of robotics that compete for our attention. On one hand, you have the compelling robots as helpers story, really positive. This narrative portrays machines saving lives in dangerous situations, performing hazardous work humans can't safely do, generally making our world safer, more efficient, more productive. Think search and rescue in collapsed buildings or inspecting dangerously unstable structures. Great stuff. On the other hand, there's the equally powerful robots as threats narrative. Job takers, relentless surveillance tools, or even in the most alarming scenarios, precursors to autonomous, weaponized AI Skynet territory. Both of these dominant stories are continuously reinforced and amplified by media portrayals, by carefully crafted corporate PR, by evocative movie tropes playing on our deepest fears and hopes, and of course by real-world incidents like BigDog. This constant interplay leads to often highly polarized policy debates because people are reacting not just to the tech itself, but to these ingrained, emotionally charged narratives that shape their understanding and anxieties.
It's fascinating how these two narratives, though seemingly opposed, aren't mutually exclusive, are they? They often coexist within public discourse, creating this complex, sometimes contradictory, understanding of robotics. The real challenge for all of us, I think, is to navigate these powerful, often simplified stories to foster a more nuanced, more accurate understanding. Both narratives contain elements of truth and elements of exaggeration. It becomes our collective responsibility as listeners, as citizens, to try and distinguish between the realistic benefits these technologies offer, the legitimate risks they pose, and the pure speculation or sensationalism when we discuss the future of robotics. How we frame these stories profoundly impacts our acceptance and our ability to govern these powerful tools effectively.
Okay, let's bring this discussion squarely into the present. Where are these bots actually making an impact on our world today? We'll start with their role in industry and infrastructure, because we are seeing concrete, real-world examples. Quadruped robots like Spot, and increasingly other mobile platforms, are being integrated into critical workflows across various sectors: construction, energy, meticulous industrial inspection. These aren't just pilot programs anymore, they're becoming pragmatic, revenue-generating deployments. And the practical benefits are substantial. They significantly reduce dangerous human exposure, like inspecting unstable bridges, navigating hazardous oil and gas facilities, going into confined spaces too risky for humans. Crucially, they're also creating entirely new data-driven maintenance processes, providing real-time, high-fidelity information, things like thermal scans, detailed visual data, structural integrity readings, stuff humans just couldn't gather as safely, efficiently, or consistently. These implementations are fundamentally reshaping how entire workplaces operate.
Right. What's truly compelling here is how this represents a profound shift from theoretical potential to widespread, practical application. These aren't just cool gadgets for viral videos anymore. They're becoming indispensable tools, actively enhancing safety, improving operational efficiency, reducing costs in critical industrial sectors. This movement towards demonstrable value is crucial for their continued development and broader adoption. Moreover, these deployments are fundamentally altering industrial processes, creating new categories of actionable data for decision-making. Imagine the predictive maintenance capabilities when a robot can tirelessly collect consistent data points over months, years even, far beyond what human teams could manage. This is where they deliver tangible, measurable benefits that really secure their place in modern infrastructure.
And this expansion into real-world applications leads us directly to politics and regulation, which has quickly become a significant, often contentious battleground. Public policy debates are now centering not on whether robots exist, I mean, that ship has sailed, right? But very specifically on the use cases of robotics. How are they being deployed? Legislators, civil liberties groups, armed with the lessons from past controversies like BigDog, are actively pushing for clearer rules and guidelines. This is particularly urgent concerning potential weaponization, the expansion of surveillance capabilities, and the specific procurement practices for police and other public entities. Boston Dynamics, acutely aware of these societal pressures, has responded directly. Their public pledge not to weaponize their robots. That's a very clear political act, demonstrating their awareness of and proactive response to these critical societal concerns. It's a statement meant to influence public opinion and policy.
You've highlighted a crucial point there about corporate responsibility and maybe the limits of voluntary pledges. While Boston Dynamics' stance against weaponization is certainly commendable, many policy scholars and ethicists argue that such corporate commitments, while positive, may ultimately be insufficient without legally binding constraints. Real teeth. The inherent dual-use nature of many advanced technologies means that even a tool initially designed for benign purposes can, with modifications or alternative applications, be repurposed for far more problematic ends. This reality makes the push for robust legislative oversight and clear enforceable regulations absolutely critical. It's about establishing a framework that manages risks like mission creep, the potential for unintended misuse, and ensures public trust isn't eroded by future incidents.
Beyond policy, these robots have undeniably transcended their technical origins. They've become bona fide cultural icons, deeply embedded in our media landscape. Those viral demos, the appearances on late-night talk shows, the constant, often heated debates raging across social media platforms. They've transformed these machines into a powerful shorthand, a shorthand for broader anxieties and hopes surrounding the entire field of AI. Popular culture, everything from blockbuster sci-fi films to daily news commentary, internet memes consistently amplifies both the fear and the fascination. This amplification, in turn, creates a powerful feedback loop, doesn't it? It influences purchasing decisions by companies, shapes the trajectory of policy-making debates, even impacts the direction and funding of future robotics research. The stories we tell about these robots become almost as influential as their actual capabilities.
It's truly fascinating how the cultural narrative can sometimes outpace or even redefine the technological reality. These robots become powerful, malleable symbols, capable of representing our collective hopes for a more efficient, safer future, but simultaneously embodying our deepest fears about job displacement, surveillance, or a loss of human control. This cultural resonance isn't merely about entertainment, it directly impacts how society is prepared to accept or reject these technologies. If the cultural narrative consistently paints robots as job takers or threats, well, that will manifest in public resistance and policy demand, regardless of the nuanced benefits. It becomes a critical factor in their long-term integration into our daily lives and workplaces.
Finally, let's talk about the profound shifts occurring within technological ecosystems right now. We revisited collaborations like the one between Boston Dynamics and the Toyota Research Institute. These partnerships aren't just about incremental improvements. They're pointing towards a future where robots learn complex tasks from incredibly rich, multimodal data. So, drawing information from vision, what they see, proprioception, their awareness of their own body's position and movement, and even intuitive language prompts. Pick up that box. This represents a monumental leap, a move towards far more adaptable, less laboriously hand-programmed robots. It's a structural shift in robotics R&D that goes far beyond just making existing robots a bit faster or stronger. This is about enabling true embodied intelligence.
Indeed. This move towards embodied AI and generalist behavior models is one of the most significant developments in modern robotics, truly transformative. Instead of engineers having to painstakingly program every single action, movement, reaction for a specific task, these robots are learning from demonstration, from observation, from unified, holistic policies that allow for robust skill transfer. Across an incredibly wide range of tasks and environments, this has profound implications for how quickly capabilities might scale, potentially leading to far more versatile, capable machines that can perform unforeseen tasks. And precisely because of that rapid scaling potential, it significantly raises the urgency for developing robust governance frameworks now. To keep pace with these advancements, we need to ensure that as capabilities accelerate, so too does our ability to manage their deployment responsibly and ethically. Hashtag unpacking controversies, myths, and lesser-known truths.
Okay, let's try and unpack some of the specific controversies, prevalent myths, and maybe some lesser-known truths surrounding these robots. Because, as we've seen, the reality is rarely as straightforward as it first appears. Starting with the key controversies: weaponization and policing. This remains incredibly sensitive, highly charged territory. It's crucial to understand that even an unarmed robot, when deployed by law enforcement in a public space, can be perceived as a potent instrument of coercion. This perception can be just as impactful, sometimes more so, than actual weaponization. The heated debates over police use of SPOT dramatically highlighted how public trust can rapidly collapse, sometimes irreversibly, without genuine transparency, prior public engagement, and clear accountability mechanisms. It really underscored that it's not just about what the robot can technically do, but profoundly about what it represents and signifies within a given social and political context.
It's true. The mere presence of these machines in a policing context can fundamentally alter public perception, irrespective of their current operational capabilities. It often evokes, doesn't it, those images from dystopian science fiction, triggering deep-seated concerns about authoritarianism, surveillance, a loss of human discretion in critical situations. This rapid erosion of trust, often stemming from a lack of transparent protocols and community input, served as a significant case study in governance failure, a real wake-up call. It clearly demonstrated that preemptive public engagement and dialogue are not just nice-to-haves. They are essential components for any successful, socially accepted deployment of advanced tech in civic spaces. Without that, you're building on very shaky ground indeed.
Another controversy, often overshadowed by the more dramatic debates, is this persistent tension between PR efforts and actual day-to-day product utility. Those viral demo videos. Undeniably incredible. A testament to the engineering brilliance involved, no question. But they can sometimes, perhaps inadvertently, exaggerate the immediacy of general widespread deployment. Make it seem like they're ready for anything, anywhere, right now. The impressive choreography we admire might occasionally mask inherent limitations, like the fact they often operate under highly controlled lab conditions or require significant human teleoperation in the background. The robots aren't always as autonomously agile or adaptable in chaotic real-world environments as a perfectly executed dance routine might suggest. Boston Dynamics, to their credit, seems to be actively trying to shift this perception now. They're increasingly showcasing more practical, real-world applications construction, inspection, moving beyond just the initial wow factor to demonstrate tangible, sustained value.
That's a vital point. The challenge for any high-tech company operating in the public eye is balancing the need to showcase cutting-edge innovation with the risks of creating unrealistic public expectations, or even fostering a sense of dread. The sophisticated choreography is indeed a testament to engineering prowess, but it often needs more context. Context regarding the operational envelopes, the deployment realities, the recent push by Boston Dynamics to focus on practical utility inspection, dangerous infrastructure work that's a pragmatic and necessary response. It aims to ground public perception in reality, demonstrating how these machines solve actual problems rather than just existing as captivating spectacles. It's about building trust through consistent, verifiable utility, not just through viral moments.
Okay, now let's tackle a pervasive myth head-on. The idea that robots will take all jobs tomorrow, end quote. This apocalyptic prediction, while often sensationalized in media, is consistently challenged by rigorous research. Studies from organizations like the OECD, for example, suggest job displacement is far more nuanced, more complex than a wholesale takeover. Instead, what we observe is that individual tasks within jobs get automated, leading to jobs being transformed rather than outright eliminated in many cases. The net employment effects vary significantly, by sector, by region, over different time horizons. So while those immediate catastrophic catastrophic predictions of mass unemployment are largely overstated, it is absolutely crucial to stress that localized disruption and the very real need for substantial retraining programs. That's present right now. This makes complacency a genuine danger. Ignoring these realities would be a massive disservice to the workforce.
You've articulated the core nuance perfectly there. The myth of mass job annihilation often overshadows the more complex yet equally impactful reality, which is, the future of work is primarily about adaptation and profound transformation, not simply wholesale elimination. While entire job categories might not vanish overnight, the nature of many jobs will change profoundly. Absolutely. Consider a factory worker whose repetitive assembly tasks are automated. Their job might not disappear, but it might morph into supervising multiple robots, interpreting data from them, performing more complex, less routine problem solving. This necessitates policy responses that are equally nuanced, focusing heavily on continuous skill development, robust social safety nets, comprehensive support systems for workers through these inevitable transitions, rather than succumbing to either panic or just ignoring the very real challenges faced by individuals.
And for a fascinating kind of lesser-known truth, incredibly small design choices often shape public reaction and acceptance far more profoundly than a robot's raw technical capability. Think about it. Subtle factors like a robot's specific gait, its walking style, or the precise placement of its cameras. Does it look like it's watching? Whether it has vocal affordances, can it make sounds or speak? And even the nuanced way an operator teleoperates it. These seemingly minor cues can profoundly shape how a human perceives and reacts to the machine, subconsciously, often. Designers and deployers frequently, perhaps unintentionally, underestimate these powerful cultural signals embedded in engineering decisions. It's not just about what the robot does functionally, it's about the subconscious, often emotional communication these robots convey through their very presence and interaction.
This raises such a critical question for designers and engineers, doesn't it? Beyond pure functionality, how does the user experience, the public interaction, shape perceptions? The way a robot moves, its fluidity, its speed, its apparent gaze through its sensors can evoke incredibly strong emotional responses. A slight change in a robot's gait, for instance, might shift public perception from helpful tool to menacing presence. Just like that. Similarly, camera placement can feel like active observation or just an indifferent sensor. Understanding these cultural and psychological nuances is absolutely vital for building robots that are not just technically capable and efficient, but also socially legible, acceptable, and ultimately trustworthy to the public. It's about designing for human perception, not just for performance metrics. #tagged, #expert opinions and theoretical perspectives.
Okay, let's turn now to the diverse world of expert opinions and theoretical perspectives surrounding these advanced robotics. From the mainstream viewpoint, particularly among engineers and those, deeply entrenched within the industry, there's a consistent emphasis on the practical, tangible benefits. They highlight, for example, how machines like Spot replace humans in inherently hazardous tasks. Think inspecting unstable mining tunnels or contaminated nuclear sites. Really dangerous work. They underscore how robots significantly improve inspection efficiency, consistently gathering more reliable, precise data than humans ever could, and how they generate entirely new data modalities crucial for advanced asset management, predictive maintenance. Many within this field advocate strongly for careful, limited, well-managed deployment over panicked, sweeping bans, constantly stressing the undeniable advantages these robots offer in solving real-world problems.
What's compelling about this perspective is its pragmatic grounding. It's grounded in solving concrete problems. These experts fundamentally see robots as highly sophisticated tools to address critical issues like enhancing worker safety in undeniably dangerous environments, or fulfilling the demand for precise, repeatable data collection in complex industrial settings. Their advocacy for measured, responsible deployment reflects a genuine desire to harness these considerable benefits ethically, without succumbing to either a naive techno-utopianism that ignores risks or an unfounded techno-dystopian fear that just rejects progress outright. It's a very practical, solution-oriented approach to a complex technology.
Right. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you have ethicists and policy scholars. They advocate for much stricter limits, more robust oversight. They call for absolute transparency in any public deployments, particularly involving police or other civic uses. And they demand robust legislative oversight to rigorously address potential surveillance and civil liberties risks. They often point to those controversial police trials, like the infamous DigDog case in New York, as prime case studies of governance failure. Exhibit A. These incidents, they argue, starkly illustrate what happens when powerful technologies are introduced into sensitive public spaces without prior, thorough public discussion, clear ethical guidelines, and democratic accountability mechanisms in place.
This perspective truly raises an important question about the social contract, the implicit contract inherent in introducing new technologies. Ethicists and policy scholars are often the crucial voices asking, should we, instead of simply can we? They rightly stress that corporate pledges, while a positive initial step, are not legally binding. They're not inherently enforceable. Their core argument is that robust, long-term governance demands far more than good intentions. It necessitates clear, comprehensive legislative frameworks, broad public participation in decision-making, and demonstrably enforceable limits. Limits to protect fundamental rights, and critically, to maintain enduring public trust in the institutions deploying these technologies. It's about safeguarding societal values in the face of rapid tech change.
Moving to more alternative and cautionary views, many tech skeptics and social scientists offer a crucial counterpoint. They warn that corporate pledges, like Boston Dynamics' commitment not to weaponize, may be insufficient without accompanying legally binding constraints. They highlight very real risks like mission creep, where a robot's initial benign purpose gradually expands into more problematic uses over time. They also emphasize the inherent challenges of dual-use capabilities, where tech designed for one beneficial purpose can be easily adapted or modified for another, potentially harmful one. Furthermore, these voices consistently raise concerns about potentially inequitable economic impacts, particularly the disproportionate effects of automation on vulnerable worker populations or developing economies.
It's vital to incorporate these cautionary voices for a truly balanced dialogue. Absolutely essential. They serve as an essential reminder that technology never operates in a vacuum. It's deeply embedded within complex socioeconomic and political systems. What's particularly incisive about their focus is the long-term systemic implications. They look beyond the immediate impressive demos to consider broader societal consequences. They push for a more critical examination of existing power dynamics, questions of economic equity, the very real potential for unintended consequences on a grand scale. They urge us to look beyond immediate benefits and ask probing questions. Who ultimately benefits? Who bears the costs? What safeguards are truly sufficient?
Finally, let's look at the cutting edge of robotics thinking, particularly from researchers working on those large behavior models, LBMs. These researchers are making a profoundly compelling argument. They believe that a single end-to-end policy, one that seamlessly integrates perception, what a robot sees, feels, language understanding, how it interprets commands, and motor control, how it moves, manipulates, could dramatically accelerate robust skill transfer across an incredibly wide variety of tasks. This holistic approach holds immense promise for creating far more practical, adaptable, truly intelligent service robots. Some prominent robotics commentators, while cautiously welcoming this advancement as a necessary step moving from mere demos to truly usable robotic helpers, also unequivocally acknowledge that it significantly raises the urgency for robust governance, because these capabilities are poised to scale with unprecedented speed.
What's truly transformative about the vision of embodied generalist models is the paradigm shift it represents, a fundamental change. We're moving away from painstakingly programming individual movements, specific task sequences, to training a robot to understand and perform tasks using unified, holistic policies, integrating all its senses and actions. This is the clearest path towards truly usable robotic helpers, robots that can adapt intelligently to unforeseen situations, generalize learned skills. However, this advancement also profoundly intensifies the governance challenge, massively. As robots become more autonomous, more capable of learning, less reliant on explicit human programming. Ensuring fundamental safety, explainability, understanding why a robot did what it did, and critically predictable and safe failure modes becomes absolutely paramount. It's a massive leap forward in capability that demands an equally substantial leap in responsible development, oversight, and ethical foresight.
Okay, let's bring all these theoretical and historical points to life with some specific real-world case studies. Examples that vividly illustrate the impact of these technologies. First, we have the infamous NYPD DigiDog controversy, unfolded between 2020 and 2021. This was a truly significant moment, the intense public backlash against a leased spot unit being used by the New York City Police Department. It was so severe, so widespread, that it ultimately forced the termination of the contract. They had to send it back. The core debate points were multifaceted, questioning the fundamental legitimacy of using such tech for policing, highlighting a shocking lack of public notice or consultation before deployment, raising pressing civil liberties concerns about surveillance, privacy, and ultimately revolving around the incredibly negative public optics. Imagine seeing a metallic dog patrolling your streets or public housing. It immediately brings to mind dystopian futures for many people.
Oh, absolutely. That episode is now widely cited in policy discussions as a quintessential cautionary tale. Textbook example. It powerfully demonstrated the inherent dangers of deploying visible advanced robots in contested civic spaces without prior genuine public engagement, without clear, transparent ethical guidelines. It wasn't just about the technology's functions, but profoundly about the institution it represented, the deep-seated questions it raised about surveillance, authority, community trust, especially in areas where relations with law enforcement were already strained. This incident highlighted that public perception can be more powerful than technical specification, forcing a retreat even when operational utility might have been argued.
Right. Now, in stark contrast to the DigiDog debacle, we have the ongoing story of Spot in construction and inspection, a clear and pragmatic success story. Much different narrative. Spot units are now actively, routinely deployed on construction sites across the globe. They patrol vast areas, perform intricate 3D scans of progress, and critically, they reduce human risk exposure in inherently hazardous or confined environments. Imagine a robot autonomously navigating an unfinished structure to monitor rebar placement, or crawling into a narrow, gas-filled pipe to inspect for damage tasks that would be slow, dangerous, maybe impossible for humans. We've seen numerous reports from site operators citing tangible efficiency gains, faster data collection, more accurate progress tracking alongside significant safety advantages. This showcases a pragmatic, non-threatening application pathway, where the robot is clearly understood as a tool augmenting human capabilities, not replacing them in a way that generates widespread anxiety.
These applications perfectly illustrate the robots as helpers, narrative, and action, and they are crucial for the continued evolution and acceptance of robotics. Absolutely key. They demonstrate how these machines can be seamlessly integrated into existing workflows to solve concrete high-value problems, making dangerous jobs demonstrably safer and more efficient. This path of deployment, focusing on reducing human risk, enhancing data collection precision, improving overall operational efficiency, is proven to be not only a revenue-generating strategy, but one that consistently garners significantly more public acceptance compared to more controversial uses. It's a potential blueprint for successful human-robot collaboration.
Then there are the Atlas demonstrations, coupled with the ongoing LBM research, which offer us a truly exhilarating and, yes, sometimes unsettling glimpse into the future. We've seen recent collaborations, particularly with Toyota Research Institute, producing demonstrations where the all-electric Atlas performs incredibly complex whole-body manipulation tasks. We're talking intricate actions like grasping tools, opening doors, even emergent coordinated behaviors using those unified large behavior models we discussed. This represents a striking fundamental shift, from robots requiring separate motion controllers for different body parts to a fully behavior-oriented AI stack, where the robot learns to control its entire body as a single integrated system.
This is where we see the rubber truly meeting the road, so to speak, in terms of advanced AI and physical embodiment. These demonstrations have simultaneously excited observers with their undeniable promise of more versatile, capable robots that can genuinely assist in complex physical tasks. Yet they've also unsettled many, due to the sheer breadth and integration of capacities that Atlas is now exhibiting. It's a clear indicator that the pace of technological advancement in embodied AI is accelerating. Exponentially, it feels like sometimes. This isn't just about individual movements anymore. It's about a robot learning to perform complex integrated actions in a sophisticated, generalized way, which is a major, undeniable leap forward in the quest for truly adaptable, intelligent machines.
It's abundantly clear, isn't it, that not all societies respond to the advent of advanced robotics in the same way. There are fascinating, significant cultural variations at play. For instance, if we look at the United States and Western Europe, the debate is often characterized by this dynamic blend, right? Techno-optimism within industry circles, passionately advocating for innovation, deployment, juxtaposed against strong civil liberties activism, intensely scrutinizing any potential infringements on privacy or expansion of state power. This cultural push and pull means police uses of robots, like DigiDog, face intense scrutiny. And public dialogue tends to be quite polarized, reflecting these two often opposing yet equally passionate viewpoints.
It's truly fascinating how deeply cultural values and historical context shape our reactions to technology. You see it so clearly here. In these Western regions, there's a strong emphasis on individual rights, privacy, skepticism of governmental overreach, which naturally leads to heightened caution and debate when embodied robots are introduced, especially by state actors. This explains why the ethical crossroads we discussed earlier became such a potent flashpoint in Western societies. It underscores the critical importance of democratic oversight and robust public discourse in societies that value individual freedoms highly. The debate is often framed around power dynamics and human autonomy.
Now, in stark contrast, if we turn our gaze to East Asia, particularly Japan and South Korea, we often find a generally more ambivalent, sometimes more overtly accepting relationship with robots. There appear to be stronger cultural scripts, different narratives around service robots and social robots, perhaps influenced by different societal structures, historical experiences with automation, or even popular culture like anime and manga. While concerns about surveillance and job impacts certainly still exist within these nations, Japan, for example, has a particularly long-standing cultural interest in humanoid robotics, which profoundly influences its national discourse. It's even the country where Masahiro Mori's uncanny valley concept, which we discussed, originally emerged. The framing often seems less about threat, more about companionship or assistance.
This really prompts an important question. What specific cultural factors contribute to these differing perceptions? In some East Asian cultures, robots have long been envisioned more as companions, caregivers, assistants in daily life, rather than being primarily perceived as purely industrial tools or potential threats to human jobs. This distinct cultural framing profoundly impacts public perception, potentially making it easier to integrate robots into everyday life and public spaces, even though underlying concerns about job displacement or ethical uses aren't entirely absent. The prevailing narrative often leans more towards collaboration and integration. It truly underscores how technology is always interpreted and integrated through a unique cultural lens. Always.
And when we examine developing economies, the focus often shifts quite dramatically. In its priorities, its concerns. Here, the immediate priority is frequently on practical industrial applications, mining, agriculture, infrastructure inspection. These deployments are driven by very tangible, pressing needs and significant cost feasibility considerations. For example, robots can make mining far safer and more efficient in countries heavily reliant on natural resources. Huge potential benefits. However, deployment in these regions might be severely constrained by existing infrastructure limitations and, of course, the substantial upfront and ongoing costs. Big hurdle. Importantly, narratives of job displacement can be particularly sensitive, politically charged even in these regions, especially where social safety nets are less robust and a large portion of the population relies on manual labor. It absolutely hammers home that context truly matters. Economic realities, social structures, cultural factors all play a profound role in shaping how robots are perceived and adopted.
Indeed. The practical benefits of robots in dangerous or labor-intensive industries can be an incredibly powerful driver in developing economies, often outweighing aesthetic or surveillance concerns in initial considerations. However, the inherent potential for job disruption in economies with less diversified labor markets and weaker social protections, that presents a unique, particularly sensitive set of challenges. This emphasizes the critical need for tailored policy responses. A one-size-fits-all approach is simply inadequate. Policies must carefully consider local economic conditions, existing social vulnerabilities, the specific needs of the workforce. Ultimately, as we've explored, cultural framing fundamentally dictates whether a robot is perceived primarily as a tool, a coworker, a weapon, or simply a spectacle in any given society.
Okay, now let's undertake a critical, balanced analysis, weighing the strengths, inherent weaknesses, undeniable benefits, and significant dangers of these advanced robots. On the side of strength and benefits, undeniable transformative progress in safety and capability. Absolutely. Robots like Spot significantly reduce human exposure to inherently hazardous tasks. Think inspecting dangerously unstable construction sites, navigating contaminated environments after a chemical spill, routine checks in active power plants. Saves lives, potentially. They also provide incredibly rich, consistent sensor data, crucial for informed maintenance decisions, predictive analysis. Humanoids like Atlas, with their increasing dexterity, promise to perform complex manipulation in environments where wheeled robots simply cannot operate, opening up entirely new possibilities for automation in unstructured, human-centric spaces, factories, maybe even homes down the line.
And the benefits extend well beyond mere practical application. They're catalyzing significant scientific progress across multiple domains. We shouldn't forget that. Consider the advances in areas like large behavior models, integrated perception control stacks. These aren't just improving robots. They're accelerating fundamental research across embodied AI, machine learning, industrial automation. This pushes the very boundaries of what's technologically possible, not just in robotics, but in AI as a whole, creating a virtuous cycle of innovation that benefits diverse fields and industries. The intellectual spillover is enormous, pushing the entire scientific frontier forward.
However, there are also clear and significant weaknesses and limitations that we absolutely must acknowledge. Many of those impressive demonstrations we see, while visually stunning, often occur in highly controlled, almost pristine settings. Labs, basically. Generalizing these capabilities reliably and consistently to the unpredictable variability of the real world with all its messy, unforeseen complexities at scale. That remains incredibly challenging and, frankly, often very costly. They're simply not yet as robustly adaptable or universally autonomous as they might appear in a perfectly choreographed video or contained lab environment. The jump from lab to chaotic reality is still a massive chasm for many robotic systems.
This highlights what we often call the last mile problem in robotics. Bridging that gap between impressive lab demos and truly reliable, consistent real-world deployment. It's tough. Another significant weakness, if we connect this to the broader economic picture, is the issue of cost and accessibility. The current high purchase or leasing costs, coupled with ongoing maintenance expenses, the need for specialized operators. It means initial deployments are largely limited to well-funded organizations, large corporations. This immediately raises important questions about equity and access, particularly concerning who ultimately benefits from these advanced technologies and who might be left behind. It's a technology that, for now, remains largely out of reach for smaller businesses or individuals.
And then, we must confront the inherent dangers, the significant risks. Despite corporate pledges of non-weaponization, the risks of actual weaponization or their use in coercive roles remain significant. We can't just wish them away. Market pressures, potential for third-party modifications beyond the manufacturer's control, the ever-present concern of dual-use capabilities, all contribute to this risk. Public trust, as we've seen so clearly, can rapidly and irrevocably erode if robots become associated with coercive policing, surveillance, or direct military applications, regardless of their original benign intent. The perception can become the reality in the public mind very quickly.
Indeed. This raises a crucial question about the long-term integrity, the enforceability of such pledges. Can we rely on them? What's particularly damaging is that the mere perception of a robot as a tool of coercion can be as detrimental to public acceptance as its actual weaponization. Furthermore, surveillance and privacy constitute massive, ongoing concerns, huge. The persistent array of sensors, cameras, LiDAR, microphones on these robots generates new, continuous streams of data, constantly. This necessitates the urgent development of robust governance frameworks to answer critical questions. Who stores this vast amount of data? Who has access to it? For what purposes can it be used? How long is it retained? Unfortunately, transparency and robust oversight mechanisms are currently lagging significantly behind deployment capabilities, creating this perilous regulatory void that urgently needs addressing, like yesterday.
And finally, we cannot, under any circumstances, ignore the profound psychological effects these robots can have. That pervasive automation anxiety we discussed earlier, the very real potential for mental health impacts in communities facing significant job displacement, economic uncertainty, and the inherent social effects of the uncanny valley. These are not trivial concerns. They are profound, policy-relevant issues that demand our serious, empathetic attention. We're talking about very real human impacts, extending far beyond mere economic statistics or technical performance metrics. They touch upon identity, well-being, social cohesion itself. So given this complex landscape, what are the practical steps forward? Let's move to some concrete policy and governance recommendations. First and foremost, contract transparency is absolutely essential, non-negotiable really. We must advocate for mandatory public notice and robust oversight before any police or civic deployments of robots are initiated. Full stop. The NYPD Spot controversy taught us a harsh, undeniable lesson. Attempting these deployments without prior public consultation and transparency leads directly to a rapid, often irreversible collapse of trust. Public buy-in must be secured from the outset, not after a backlash erupts.
This recommendation directly addresses one of the most significant lessons learned from past failures. Absolutely critical. Equally crucial, if we connect this to the bigger picture, are legally binding limits. Limits on weaponization, limits on the export of dual-use technologies that could be repurposed. Corporate pledges, while a positive step demonstrating good intent, are simply insufficient in the long run. They lack teeth. Lawmakers must enshrine clear, legally binding limits with strong enforcement mechanisms to prevent misuse and maintain enduring public confidence. This shifts the paradigm from voluntary agreements to concrete legal protections that everyone can understand and rely upon.
We also desperately need to establish comprehensive data governance frameworks, urgently. As these robots become increasingly pervasive, collecting vast amounts of information through their sophisticated sensors, clear rules for the retention, access, and specific use of that robot-collected data must be established as a priority. Right now, oversight mechanisms are clearly lagging far behind deployment capabilities, creating significant privacy risks, potential for misuse. We need a proactive, not reactive, approach to the stated deluge. We're already behind.
This raises an important question, though. How do we design these frameworks to be agile enough to accommodate rapidly evolving technology, yet robust enough to genuinely protect individual rights and privacy? It's a tough balance. Finally, and perhaps most critically for social stability, we need proactive worker transition programs. Real investment here. This means targeted retraining initiatives, carefully crafted local economic policies specifically designed for sectors and communities likely to be transformed by embodied automation. Evidence from organizations like the OECD consistently supports these nuanced policy responses, recognizing that while jobs aren't universally disappearing, they are undeniably changing, and workers absolutely need comprehensive support to adapt, reskill, and hopefully thrive in the evolving labor market.
So let's circle back to our initial resonant question. Should we be scared? And perhaps let's reframe it slightly for a deeper understanding. The fear isn't simply about robots walking gracefully or grasping objects with astonishing dexterity. That's just the surface. That fear is a shorthand, isn't it? A proxy for far deeper, inherently human questions that resonate within us all. It's about who truly controls these increasingly powerful technologies, who ultimately benefits from their relentless advancements, whose jobs and livelihoods will undeniably change or even disappear. And what does the public realm look like when autonomous embodied machines become an integral part of it? Boston Dynamics, with its dazzling viral demos, its increasingly practical industrial deployments, and its highly controversial public pilots. It sits squarely at this fascinating, complex meeting point, where engineering possibility directly clashes with or seeks to integrate into our collective societal imagination and our deepest human values.
And this leads us to what I believe is the right stance for us, as individuals, as a society. Not to be paralyzed by fear, nor to be naively celebratory in the face of these changes. Neither extreme helps. Instead, it's about embracing a stance of pragmatic vigilance. That's the key, I think. We should absolutely applaud the genuine technical breakthroughs. They truly do save lives in dangerous situations. They expand human capabilities into new frontiers. They push the boundaries of scientific knowledge. That's incredible. But simultaneously, we must insist on democratic oversight. Demand absolute transparency in their deployment, and proactively implement forward-thinking social policies to manage the inevitable, often uneven, economic transitions these technologies will bring. This isn't about simply reacting to the future, it's about actively shaping it, with our values firmly in mind.
That's beautifully and powerfully put. And as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you, our thoughtful listener, with a set of provocative, open questions for your own continued reflection and exploration. Because this crucial conversation is far, far from over. It's just beginning in many ways. First, governance. What truly enforceable legal instruments beyond mere corporate promises will effectively prevent the weaponization and misuse of these increasingly advanced, capable robots? How do we actually build that into the fabric of our laws?
Second, labor transition. What scaled retraining and comprehensive social policies will be needed, not just nationally, but tailored to local communities, to effectively manage automation's uneven, potentially disruptive effects on labor markets? How do we truly support those most impacted?
Third, design ethics. How can designers and engineers intentionally mitigate those uncanny valley effects? How can they build robots that are not just highly functional, but also socially legible, aesthetically acceptable, and genuinely trustworthy to us as humans?
Fourth, public engagement. How can we institutionalize meaningful, ongoing community input before robots are introduced into public spaces? Ensuring public consent and concerns are integral to the deployment process, not an afterthought after a backlash. How do we make that standard practice?
And finally, fifth, technical safety. As large behavior models scale to control incredibly complex embodied systems, how can we absolutely ensure robustness? Achieve true explainability so we understand their decisions, and critically, engineer truly safe and predictable failure modes in these increasingly autonomous machines.
The next decade will undoubtedly be a defining period, one that will reveal whether humanoids like Atlas and quadrupeds like Spot primarily emerge as indispensable productivity tools reshaping our industries, or as potent cultural symbols reflecting our deepest hopes and fears. Or perhaps as vectors of much deeper, systemic change across our societies, fundamentally altering what it means to live and work.
Food for thought, indeed. That's all for this deep dive. Join us next time as we continue to explore the fascinating intersections of technology, humanity, and our shared future.